Hello Slashaholics, this is the 80 Slasher Librarian. Before I start tonight's upload, I just want to say I'm sorry that it has been so long since the last narration of this book. I had hoped things would pick up where I could put out narrations a lot quicker, but I suffered a minor stroke in early January. I've been recovering, and now I'm back. And so is Freddy! So let's get after it with tonight's narration. Freddy vs. Ash, a fan novel by A.S. Eggleston. Chapter 6. Ash looked up at the wall clock. He realized that it was time for him to get ready for work. He painfully pushed himself up, feeling the knot in the back of his head as he got back up on his feet. Standing upright, Ash looked around him and examined the living room. If the injuries he sustained in his dreams were real, what about everything else he had broken? Ash looked at the floor lamp. It stood perfectly straight, as if it had never toppled over. How can that be? Just a minute ago it seemed that damn lamp was broken and on the floor. He directed his attention to the shelf on the wall next to it. The hinges were unbroken, the shelf was level, and everything on it was back in its usual spot. Whipping his head in the opposite direction, Ash had prepared to see his stereo broken into a dozen pieces. On any other day, seeing his precious stereo that cost him nearly a month's pay busted beyond recognition would be the last thing he would want to see. But he hoped for some remaining fragment of the night before to make some kind of sense out of this. The stereo was unbroken, with not a scratch to be found. Come on, that's impossible, Ash thought. Nothing was making sense anymore. He felt as if his sanity was being stripped away from him every minute. Something was obviously trying to come after him. He didn't have any definitive proof. What he saw was only a mere glimpse, but he knew. It was a persistence aching in the back of his mind. He knew who was trying to get to him, but he only saw him for half a second. How could he have known if it was really Freddy? Even if it was just for half a second, he was standing right in front of him, so close he could feel the hot breath coming from his mouth. He remembered. It smelled like a rotting animal carcass, mixed with brimstone, something awful like that. Mostly, he remembered that horrible, ugly face, the same face he saw the night before. Half of it had been covered by a dirty brown hat, but the rest was revolting. Skin charred to such a degree that it would have killed any other living being. At the same time, it was raw and seeping blood in spots. The mere memory of his face disgusted Ash. Judging from what he'd heard before, and what he'd experienced just then, it seemed like Ash had just been the victim of a deathly nightmare. It was quite possible that maybe, if his assumptions were correct, Ash was Freddy Krueger's latest prey, his newest target. But why? Didn't this Freddy guy always go after little kids, young girls and boys who were too weak to defend themselves? Why me? Why now? Ash was going to be late if he spent any more time trying to figure this all out right now. He rushed up the stairs, hoping that a cold shower would set his mind right, and keep him awake longer. The droplets of water shooting from the shower head felt like icy cold needles against Ash's skin. He shivered from underneath the shower head, feeling goosebumps rise from his shoulders as he clutched them for some small sense of warmth. As discomforting as it was standing underneath what felt like a hailstorm in the shower, it was still better that than going through what he had endured last night. Ash reached over and turned off the water, the knobs creaking as he did so. He stepped out of the bathroom, leading straight into his bedroom. He promptly dried himself off and put his work clothes on. There was some blood on his shirt, specifically a large splatter on the right, near his ribcage. On his trousers there were specks of coal and soot, along with dirt all across the bottom of his pant leg. He couldn't really do anything about that right now, so he reached for cleaner clothes in the closet. After buttoning his shirt, he turned slightly and reached over to the nightstand to grab his name tag. Spots of blood had accumulated over it as well. It seemed like a quick fix. He spit on the name tag and wiped off the deadite blood on his white shirt. Before he left, he had a quick look of himself in the mirror. making sure that the slight dirt stains and cuts on his face would be presentable enough. With any luck, people wouldn't think he had entered the store after having just gone on a ravenous killing spree. Although that accusation wouldn't have been too far from the truth. Ash felt he looked clean enough to show up for work. Moving on from his wardrobe, Ash stepped up closer to the mirror and studied his own face. He was aware that everybody gets older, and he wasn't excluded from that. When taking away the shotgun, the chainsaw, the leather holsters, and the bloodstains that accompanied them, Ash looked just like any other man on the cusp of age 50. He had crow's feet in the corners of his eyes. He wasn't as energetic and agile as he used to be. And frankly, he's starting to find people half his age to be a real pain in the ass. But some things remained the same. Over the years, he'd gained so many scars, it looked like a road map across his whole face. Thankfully, the mutton chops across the lower half of his face covered most of them. On the bridge of his nose, he had just a small nick. On his forehead, right temple, and left cheek were fairly large scars, pink in coloration. His biggest one spread across from his upper to his lower lip. Each scar was a memory of a different injury. Being body slammed into a tree by a demonic force, cut with a glass shard by an undead girlfriend, scratched across the face by a band of living skeletons. For most men, a face full of scarification and wounds wasn't considered classically handsome. But on Ash, considering how the placement of the scars was symmetrical with his bone structure, rather similar to that of the Tick, it gave him somewhat of a rough charm. Ash had also been lucky in the sense that he still had a full head of hair. He ran his fingers through his locks and lingered on the wide gray streak of hair on the side of his head. Some have said it made him look distinguished, refined, and wiser. Ash viewed it as looking weak, and that he shouldn't be battling grotesque monsters anymore. Deciding not to dwell on the subject any further, Ash turned away from the mirror, headed downstairs, and out the door he went.
Shop smart, shop S-smart.
Ash trudged his way to work around 9 a.m. that morning. He kept his black leather jacket on him to conceal the small spots of blood that couldn't wash out. As far as the built-in dirt and grass stains on his pant leg, he'd just make up some story about how his car broke down in the middle of the road, and he was forced to push it back to the nearest auto shop. It wasn't that hard a story for people to believe. Just like yesterday, he'd kept himself awake through massive amounts of coffee and energy drinks. But unlike the day before, Ash wasn't able to get any kind of sugar high, or jolt at all. He just felt depleted and diminished. At least when he was pumped up full of caffeine, he was able to get through the day just fine. Today, he didn't want to deal with whiny little brats and pencil-necked managers with clipboards all day. But it was better that than the nightmares. Despite his high rank in the housewares business, Ash had spent the better half of the morning stacking boxes of microwave ovens into a perfect little pyramid. Apparently being Senior Housewares Domestic Engineer of S-Mart meant that he still had to stock shelves and price check this and that. But he got a shiny new name tag to boot. After 30 or so years, he thought he would at least get a clipboard of his own, and longer breaks at lunchtime. Just as he stacked the last box at the very top, which stood as high as he did, just a little over 6 feet tall, Ash heard the squeaky footsteps of his nerdy co-worker, Anthony. He cringed at the sound of those rubber-soled loafers he always wore. With each wide step that Anthony took, the horrid squeaks got increasingly louder. Ash closed his eyes and breathed a sigh of discontent. He really didn't have time for this right now. Anthony stood but a few feet away from him now. Ash turned around to face him. He looked down at him, noticing his beetle haircut that was parted perfectly down the middle. In fact, it was a little too perfect. He must have spent half an hour that morning making sure he was dressed in the height of nerdy fashion. "Hey, Ash?" he inquired as he pushed his thick, black glasses back against the bridge of his nose. He replied. Anthony looked into his bloodshot eyes. "You look like you haven't slept. I hope we didn't scare you yesterday." "No," he answered quickly. "My, car broke down on the way home, so I had to walk here." "Oh, okay," he said, relieved. "Say, while I have your attention, do you know anything about home repair? Do-it-yourself kind of stuff?" It was kind of funny to Ash. The day before, he was telling horror stories to him, forewarning him about the dangers that may surface by living in a murder house. And here he is today, back to asking him dumb, meaningless questions to get a little attention. Ash leaned back against the stack, but not far enough to completely demolish the pyramid of suckies he had just completed. He was about to tell Anthony to bugger off in the nicest way he could think of, when out of the corner of his eye he noticed a gorgeous blonde walking his way. She had shiny red lips, long legs, and was wearing a tight blue t-shirt. It was time to bring out the old Ash charm. Speaking a little louder than normal, Ash kept switching eye contact between Anthony and the woman and said, "Well, I know my way around a screw." She was closer now, about to pass him by. Ash looked right at her and did his signature cocky smile. "Hi, how are you doing?" Their eyes met, and needless to say, she was not impressed. She scoffed and carried on without a second glance. Oh well, Ash thought. Back to the pencil neck. Anthony continued ignoring his failed attempt at getting a lady. "Yeah, I was hoping I could get some advice about fixing the ceiling fans in my house." He made a propeller motion with his index finger, as if Ash didn't know what a fan was. Arrogant little prick. The guy wasn't really that bad. It was just that Ash felt absolutely drained and didn't feel like putting up with anybody's shit today. He exhaled and rubbed his eyes intensely, trying to wipe away his sluggishness. "Look, Anthony," he said, trying to be nice. I'm really not in the mood for this. Haven't slept in days. Could you just leave me alone for one little day?" Anthony raised his hands, accepting defeat. "Fine, whatever, Ash." He finally turned around and walked away, muttering various curses under his breath. "Like I didn't warn, don't blame me. Your life becomes a living hell." Ash didn't hear a word. The loafers pretty much muted all Anthony said as he marched away. What Anthony didn't know was that Ash's life was already a living hell. It's been that way for as long as he could remember. Even as a child, Ash could just sense that danger was all around him. Maybe it was the bullies in middle school who mercilessly teased him, or it could have been the teachers who gave him bad vibes. It wasn't until that dreaded day he and Linda went to that cabin up in the mountains did all of those fears come to the surface. Even though he was just a normal guy, he was destined to be the one to defeat the foul scum of the earth for the rest of his days. He'd had enough. Ash was determined to find out if his instincts were right, if it was truly Freddy coming after him all of a sudden, or if it was just a mixture of fleeting sanity and the power of suggestion. But he wasn't going to find any answers with the crowd of people darting in and out of his way. Maybe a little walk around the store will clear my head. Setting his price marker aside, Ash left his post and paced up and down the aisles of the Springwood S-Mart. Springwood wasn't such a bad place on the surface. It was pretty much the standard suburban all-American town. Colonial-style homes filled every block. The lawns were bright green and trimmed all year round, and the buildings were sans graffiti. Ash thought it was a nice place to live, so he didn't understand why he got the sinister urge that evil dwelled in this town. That was until he stayed here long enough. After adjusting to his nightly routine of hunting demons, Ash came to realize that evil can be found under the purest of guises. As he walked, he constantly looked at the floor, muttering under his breath, "Gotta be some kind of explanation. All of this. Why did I come here?" The lack of sleep was making him delirious. Somehow he found his way to the housewares department on the other side of the store. He casually looked around him. Lamps, light sockets, nothing really interesting. At least he was safe. He was up and walking. Nothing could happen to him as long as he didn't fall asleep. After Ash reassured his own security, he noticed the lighting had become slightly darker. One of the fluorescent lights in the building had flickered off, and then back on again. Ash looked up at the faulty light. "Of course," Ash said to himself. Knowing the incompetent staff in this particular store, he knew he'd be the one who had to fix it. He continued walking, heading to the back of the building to find a ladder and a replacement bowl. "Ash stock shelves," Ash, stack these boxes. Ash, fix these damn lights. After walking a while, he realized something. He was all alone in the store. It was packed with people just a few minutes ago, but now it was barren. Another light flickered, then another. Soon the entire building was almost pitch black. He looked up at them. What the hell? He took a step forward and slipped on something slick, nearly falling down in the process. All right, now what? There was blood on the floor. A large, thick, deep red puddle covered his boots. Ash lifted his head up and looked around him. He was no longer alone anymore. Surrounding him were the corpses of young children. Some were hung by a noose around their necks from the light fixtures. Others just laid down on the floor. Their bodies had succumbed to rigor mortis, contorted in horrifying positions. A few had been impaled from the signs sticking up from the ground, stuck in the middle with their limbs reaching out. Each and every one of the children had been stabbed or cut in some way. Their skin was pale, and their lips were blue. He saw a little girl on the floor who'd had her throat sliced. Blood had poured down from her neck to the bottom of her frilly pink dress. She couldn't have been older than 5 years old. Over to his left was a boy who was probably 14, impaled and had his eyes stabbed out of the sockets. Streaks of dark blood ran from his eyes and the corners of his gaping mouth. Ash's eyes started to well up a bit, like he wanted to cry. He felt nauseous from the sight of it all. God! Looking straight ahead at the end of the trail of blood a few yards in front of him was the cold, lifeless body of another young girl, laying in front of a full-length mirror. Her hair was short blonde and stained with blood. Her face was pale with hints of blue around her cheeks. She laid on the ground, facing Ash, staring at him. It looked like the wide trail of blood had come from her body. Her right arm was extended, like she was reaching out to Ash for help. She spoke. Her voice was small and innocent. "Help me!" In an instant, her body was jerked away like something had grabbed her by her feet and dragged her away. She had been pulled inside the mirror and vanished. She never made a sound. All that was left was Ash's reflection. Without a second thought, Ash followed the trail and walked towards the mirror. He wondered how this possibly could have been happening to him. He never fell asleep. He barely even closed his eyes for more than a second. How could I possibly be dreaming? Was I nodding off when Anthony was talking to me? Or did I even wake up at all today? What if the past 12 hours had all just been one long dream? No, it can't have been that. His normal workday up until now had been boring and monotonous, while these dreams were something strange, something surreal. They were apart from reality. He knew that he was inside the dream. Cautiously, he walked towards the full-length mirror. Ash was completely defenseless, so he knew it was best to be alert. He tried his best not to overlook anything. He wasn't in his own world anymore. He was in someone else's, so he didn't know what kind of dirty trick might be played on it. He walked closer, leaving a greater distance between himself and the dozens of young cadavers. The blood puddle sloshed quietly as he stepped, leaving dark stains on his work boots. He now stood at arm's length in front of the mirror. Ash didn't want to get too close to it. He knew what happened last time he came across a mirror that was obviously screwing with his mind. Maybe his reflection would come out and try to strangle him. Or possibly it would smash to pieces, leaving little ashes scattered everywhere, and stab him in the ass with a fork. This is where the little girl had been taken to. It must have led somewhere, a pathway of some sorts. It appeared normal. All he saw was himself and what was behind him, blood and darkness. Examining it closer, ever so slowly, He reached his hand out to tap the mirror. Pulling his index finger back, preparing to gently hit the glass, Ash looked at his reflection once more to make sure nothing bad would come of this. "No funny business, you got me?" His own reflection smiled back at him, evilly, slyly. His eyes had suddenly changed from a dark brown to a bright blue. He cocked his head to the side and leaped out at Ash. Ash gasped and stepped back. The other Ash's torso and arms were completely out the frame, still grinning at the sight of his fear. This other Ash was no longer a reflection anymore. He wasn't mimicking the real Ash at all. The real Ash was terrified, with a mask of fear across his face. Meanwhile, the other was showing an astounding level of confidence and a sadistic grin upon him. That kind of arrogance could only belong to Freddy Krueger. His mannerisms and approach were the same. The only thing that differed now was his voice and appearance. Ash swallowed down a potential scream and asked him, "What do you want from me?" He grinned even wider, smiling a cocky smile, not unlike the one Ash had just a few moments ago. "I want you to let me out, you mindless little stock boy!" he bellowed. Ash's eyebrows scrunched together as he felt a mix of confusion and anger. That was the last straw. For most of his life, Ash has had to deal with pea-brained deadites demanding to be let out, possessing everybody he loves, and forcing him to hack them up with various gardening supplies. Ash wasn't that dumb. Considering all he'd been through in his life, he'd survived with only a few scratches and only one missing appendage. Ash's fear had completely washed over him and was replaced with pure anger. First, this guy scares the living hell out of him, fucks with his mind for over a week, and now he wants Ash to free him? He was determined not to let this guy get to him. "No way, buddy. Go find someone else to do your dirty work," Ash said bitterly. The arrogant smile that shone on the demented version of Ash's face was gone. These evil spirits, no matter who they were or where they came from, considering how many times Ash had cut them up or blown them to bits over the years, always loathed it when he wouldn't comply to their demands. But then again, out of all the souls to devour, his was going to be the hardest to acquire. He jumped forward and grabbed Ash by his collar. "Oh, a little slow?" he teased. Ash's confidence never left him. He grinned back, taunting him. "Yeah, enlighten me. Let you out, or what?" he dared. Ash could hear a low chuckle come from beneath his throat. "Or?" he prepared. Wait a minute, Ash thought. His voice had changed completely. At first, it was still Ash's voice talking to him, but now it was lower, graveled, like he was actually speaking to him from the dark bowels of hell. It was the same sinister voice that had been taunting him in his nightmares. It was Freddy's voice. Still grabbing him by the collar with his right hand, with his left he grabbed his own face. Digging in with his fingernails, he tore the flesh from his face. Skin and muscle had peeled off of him like a thick, leathery band-aid. Blood poured out of the edges of his face. He ripped it off like a mask, revealing the wretched face Ash saw in his nightmares last night. "Else!" Ash had never seen that trick before. His eyes widened in surprise, but he expected Freddy to be involved in this. "Freddy?" Ash accused. Freddy laughed derisively as he pushed Ash away. Watching him fall and land right on top of a display table full of kitchen knives. Momentum caused Ash to topple right over it. He landed and hit his head on the checkered marble tile. He rolled over on his back to see about a dozen sharp knives heading right for him. They each landed and struck the floor, missing him by a hair, like he'd been attached to the wheel of death in a magic show. But the last blade was aimed right in the middle of his face. Luckily, Ash's reflexes kicked in right about then, as he prevented the knife from stabbing him between the eyes. He caught the kitchen knife by the blade with his metal hand.
Hail to the king, baby.
When Ash looked up, he saw various S-Mart employees and shoppers circled around him. They stood there in disbelief, baffled at the fact that he didn't just get his face stabbed. Evelyn and Cooper were among the crowd. Evelyn stood with her hand covering her mouth. Even though she didn't know Ash that well, she was thankful he didn't get hurt. Cooper stood a few feet behind her, with his hands on her shoulders. He showed less concern for Ash than Evelyn did. Frankly, he was kind of disappointed that he didn't get not one scratch. In Cooper's mind, he would have deserved at least a slice on the arm. Ash paused for a moment to breathe, dust himself off, and internally thank God that he let him not die a painful death just now. He was dumbfounded. He couldn't think of anything to say to justify himself. What could he do? Say, "Sorry about that, folks. I got sucked into a nightmare. And Freddy Krueger just tried to kill me again. You all know Freddy, right? That little bastard's at it again." The only rational thing he could think of was to laugh it off as Anthony helped him get back on his feet. "What's going on with you, Ash?" he said, running his mouth at 100 miles per hour. "You know you're not supposed to fall asleep on the job. You could have been killed." As Ash stood back up, he noticed that he was back beside the stack of boxes he finished earlier. It didn't make any sense. He remembered being way on the other side of the store. Sorry, he apologized to Anthony. "It won't happen again." Anthony, Evelyn, Cooper, and the rest of the onlookers left and went about their own business. Ash was no longer in peril. "Show's over. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see anymore." Still looking at the pile of knives stuck on the floor, Ash kept thinking about how that could have been him. He waited until every last person had left him. "At least I hope it doesn't," he said quietly. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been Chapter 6 of Freddy vs. Ash by A.S. Eggleston. Really digging this story. I love the micro-sleep angle. Closed his eyes for a second, and boom, we had an Ash vs. Ash fight, and then a Freddy vs. Ash fight, and I thought it played out rather good. I cannot wait to see how this is going to be whenever Freddy and Ash really go at it. I mean, there's still a lot of book left here, folks, and I think that A.S. deserves a big round of applause because they brought a really cool story to fruition. And I'm really hopeful and excited to see where this story goes. I think she's doing a very good job writing Freddy and Ash so far. Ash's mannerisms and things like that, and his reactions, his inner thoughts, very much on par with the Evil Dead movies that Ash was in and the TV show. Freddy, so far, I don't see anything that I don't like about it. It's a little more of like Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2 Freddy, a little more sinister and evil, not really throwing out the one-liners or, having a grand old time, being a cult icon. So, I'm excited to see Ash, badass Ash, go up against badass version of Freddy. So I would love to hear what you guys think if you're enjoying this book so far. And I do apologize for the long, intermission between the last upload and this one. But I'm recovering, doing a lot better. I really enjoyed getting to narrate this tonight, and I really hope you all enjoyed it. I will be putting out more chapters of this. We're going to finish this book. We're going to get the last Freddy Krueger's Tales of Terror book on the channel. We're also going to get Final Destination, Destination Zero done. And, there's still more Final Destination books after that, too. And also fan fiction from you guys. In fact, if you haven't already emailed me a fan fiction that you would like narrated on the channel in the future, you can do so by sending an email to /tracks, that's SLASHTRAX 2020 @gmail.com. I'll put the email address on the screen. And as always, I'm going to put a picture at the end of this upload. It's going to be distorted and blurry, hard to see. But if you're the first person to let me know in the comments section what you think the picture is, and who it is, what movie it's from. And if you're the first person to get it right, I'll get your email address, and I'm going to send you several slasher and horror ebooks that you can enjoy in your own time. Alright, Slashaholics, until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying thanks for listening, be excellent to each other, and as always, pleasant dreams! I'll see you next time. See if you can guess this picture.